Welcome back to the CIO Lifeline. Today's topic is managing perceptions. And this is another topic that just doesn't stay focused on IT, but for the business overall. Unfortunately, or fortunately, perceptions can be reality. In fact, I would say in most cases, perceptions are always the reality. So, how do you manage those? What are some of the different scenarios you should avoid? We're going to talk about active listening, being careful who you vent to. How do you deal with the squeaky wheels in an organization from a support standpoint? A bunch of other topics, so don't go anywhere. This has been a topic we've batted around behind the scenes for quite some time. And I think this resonates with any employee, any department, any business, right? When we hear about the phrase managing perceptions, what comes to your mind?
Are you really listening to me? Are you really processing what I said? For us technical people that or at least have came up through the technical track, that soft skill of active listening is a big deal, right? So especially with the C-suite, we all been there. They ask you a question, and if you just do your quick response, your technical response, you know how to fix it, whatever. Did you really hear me? Did you really hear what I'm trying to solve? If you're thinking about what you're going to respond with, you're not active listening. So that means you're thinking about what you're going to say versus honing in on what I'm saying. Like right now, you're listening to me. The ideal equation is listen, pause, then respond. That pause is huge for making sure the people that you're talking with are being heard.
That's an interesting point when you talk about the pause, because there is a misnomer out there sometimes that the pause means you don't know versus absorbing what was being said and then articulating your response after the fact.
Yeah. Well, and us techies, when we know the answer halfway through, we wouldn't just jump on it and show them how smart we are. And so that's appropriate sometimes, right? It's like, oh yeah, let's fix it, let's move on. If it's the quick, hey, I fix it, move on. But if it's a bigger issue, you got to listen for undertones, because usually the higher up C-suite, there's more to that ask. My mouse doesn't work. Well, do you like your mouse? Do you want a different mouse? Is it not working, or do you not like it? It's simple, right? You just got to listen for the other things, because then they'll know you're listening.
And there's a know your audience element to that, right? If you're having a techie conversation with a fellow techie, sometimes it's a race to cut each other off just to move on and solve the problem. But I love what you said about like the C-suite, just something simple with the mouse, because what they're asking might not be what they're really getting to. We've talked about in the past about the art form of communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to tie this back into managing perceptions, that C-suite conversation, or a leader of any senior level, the perception of how their IT function is in the organization. I mean, this feeds it too, right? Is this someone they can have a conversation with and come up with solutions, or are we just pulling them in here to solve a quick problem and we'll get to the strategic stuff with other individuals?
Yeah, and the power of asking a great question if needed, right? Sometimes it's the quick answer, but great questions are the key of any kind of the communication of perceptions. An executive might ask you about a report. Hey, can I export it out to Excel or something simple? The quick techie would be, yeah, dump it out here, hit the export button and some. Or what are you going to do with it when you dump it out to Excel? What are you going to look for in this report? Are you looking for exceptions in this report? And if you are, why don't we just show those to you? You could see the power of good questions get to the root. And again, if it's a quick one, yeah, move on. But always have that pause. And the other component is be comfortable with white space. Most people hate white space. They can't stand it. They want to fill it up. They want to talk through it. And just Having white space means process, think, and respect. And that's, you talk about perception. There's a lot of respect perception in white space.
So another term might be the uncomfortable pause.
Mhm.
I think it's also, and I think you said it. It speaks to your character, right? You are portraying yourself as either cool, calm under pressure, or someone who can be articulate, who's really thinking and listening, or are they just nervous and feel like they gotta,
Yep.
get to an answer as fast as possible, whether it's right or wrong.
The other thing to be cautious of from a perception is cutting people off, and that goes direct opposite of active listening, right? Now, sometimes you got the ramblers where you got to cut them off, but those are more like peers and people like that. If you have a C-suite person rambling, I don't think you're going to cut them off that easy. You might go like this or try to get a pause in, but you're not going to jump in on them, unless it's something crazy going on, right? So those two things could help out with perception quite a bit.
We all know these employees in our organization. Like, you're passing in the hallway, hey, Tom, how's it going? Right? This is just, you're waiting for, oh, going good. How about you? Fine, but there's those that just, well, yesterday I was at the grocery store and this guy parked me, came up and hugged my bumper, and it's like da 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 da. So you know who your ramblers are. Back to the perceptions, right? If I'm going to be the person that's just going to cut them off, I just want to know how you were doing, right? But people are watching, people are looking, and you're trying, and you are either going to be that person who's approachable and comfortable and is not just there for tasks, there's a culture fit element to this as well. I try to be mindful of that, and I try to coach my team up. If I think about help desk and your basic IT support, you want to make sure that you are truly addressing the problem, and it's not so transactional. And that means, like, if it's a day later or a week later, just taking a minute. It doesn't have to be in person, but if they're within short distance, walking by or just picking up the phone. Hey, I know you had this problem last week. Just want to make sure things are going okay. That brief 10-second interaction goes for miles.
Sometimes with the longer-winded team members, you kind of put some time blocks on it. Say, hey, I only got 2 minutes, but can you give me an update on this? The best thing to do is kind of have a honest conversation and open them up to constructive criticism and just, again, self-awareness, right? I mean, the best thing we can give anybody is self-awareness, and just let them know, hey, I want to give you some constructive criticism. Be cautious. There's a time and a place, but be cautious of talking longer and with more information that's needed, because that could turn people off. It's not all the time, but just, again, we're trying to coach people up to be better.
That's right. And another thing to be mindful of, but it ties back to active listening and that pause you mentioned. But I've had team members in the past where they're just waiting to speak, right? They're not listening, they're waiting to speak. And a lot of times that manifests itself in the other person's talking, and they have to weigh in, before they're finished. Well, or Tom, or they repeat the name and put the hand up.
I think we've had enough.
Shut for
here.
1 second.
Shut
your mouth.
I needed someone
Wait,
to
shut your
work
mouth.
with.
Shut your mouth.
I'm sorry? What did
You're
you
just
say?
coming off stupid.
I'm coming off as stupid. You're wearing tuxedos to a job that requires you to clean bathrooms.
Not letting them finish the thought so they can jump in to solve the problem or respond before there's just not a chance to absorb it. When I'm in situations like that, I'm observing the room, and you can tell, body language can tell. It's like,
Yeah, here's a question for you. When you have your team meetings, do you end them up on closing comments and thoughts from everybody so everybody knows that they're going to have a talk moment? Okay, see, that's just super important, because otherwise that's a defeating mentality, or people feel like they have to fight or not going to be able to get their words heard. So going around the room and having people have that time, that builds a respect to the other two people, but it's also one of those things where they know you're going to call them out and they're going to have that time, so they don't have to fight. Because some team members are introverts, right? And they need to have that pull in that time, because they're just not going to be jumping out.
That's a great point, right? I mean, the more people on your team, the more diverse those personalities are. Another thing I do is I make sure that we mix up the order on the next meet, because if someone just didn't get enough time, have a chance to go first the next time, or at least, near the top. We're a customer service organization. We just are. We're a marketing organization because sometimes our ideas are hard sells, right? But we are very much in the service industry to a large extent. So I think that follow up is key. But what about the cliche statement that the customer is always right?
I've seen it flip to the protecting the employee, because there are some not nice customers out there, right? And protecting the employee keeps the culture strong, which then in turn takes care of the customer. When they know where the boundaries are, when you got to take a gut punch or a throat punch from a customer because we did something wrong, but that doesn't say you need to be abused. If they're longer term customers and they have a bad day, bad week, and it's bad, they earn the right to have a bad day, bad week, whatever, right? Because they're a long-standing customer. But if it starts out with just bad abuse, it's not going to be a good relationship. And usually those don't last anyway, right? So trying to level set that from the get-go, in my opinion, is, and drive into that storm right away. It's like, hey, this isn't the way we do business. This, we want our team to be respected, and therefore we'll take care of you at our highest capacity.
And that should also, if you were to bring that whole experience inside your own four walls, where the customers are the employees that you're helping to solve a problem or work with, that advice applies internally as well.
Oh, I've had some hard conversations with internal people. It's like, pull them in the side. You never do it in public, right? The old pull them in a room and say, that doesn't fly. That's not how we're going to work together. That's not what we're going to do. That's not how we're going to act. Now, if you need to talk with me, or you got something off your chest to get off your chest, then you come in here. We close the room and we get it off your chest. But you do not disrespect anybody on the team.
And that's a good segue for that venting.
Yeah.
I believe the phrase you made that you put out there is puking upstream.
Yep.
So let's dig into that one a little bit.
Hey, Stu, check it out. Oh my God, so gross!
So puke upstream, it's always, if you have issues, if you puke sideways, you puke down, culture killer, right? It's just complaining and it doesn't do anything. And properly defined, it's talking to somebody about a problem that can't do anything about it, right? So you want to talk to somebody about a problem that can do something about it. Your peers probably can't do something about it. Somebody underneath you can't do something about it. So I always use the term puke upstream if they can either do something about it or not, but otherwise it kills culture.
Back to the perceptions tie-in, you could have a 2-year perfect track record of being someone who's attentive and just a true asset to the organization, and lose that credibility in one moment like that, right? That's sort of the unfortunate side of having a bad moment, but you have to be mindful of that because poison spreads faster than any good deed that you have performed. So therefore, right, also you got to learn who the company's squeaky wheels and tough personalities are too. That's got to be up in your head too.
Yeah. And, the thing, a couple tips, 24-hour rule, always good, right? It's the aggressive mentality versus the assertive mentality. And I went to a class on this. It's like aggressive, you hit me, I hit you back, right? If you hit me, I'm going to pause and think, do I want to hit you back? That's assertive, right? So it's just like you pre-thought what you're going to do in that situation. Now, we don't, things come up, we get hot, and you probably don't want to go puke ideally the same day unless it's something really, really, really critical. But give yourself a 24-hour window to say, is this still going to bother me tomorrow? And if it is, be assertive and go address it. And then it's always a good idea, if you can, to be in the form of a question. This is what happened. This is, some things that were some fallout. How or what can you give me advice on how I should handle this? Or can we come up with some solution to fixing this, right? So question isn't like a demanding thing, because that puts people on defense right away.
That's a really good tip. And you mentioned about, well, I feel like this tomorrow. Another thought to this: waiting until tomorrow and then assessing it. Because I know there's sometimes in the moment, like if I'm pent up about something, I don't know if I can answer that how I will feel tomorrow question. I tend to be a person that likes to put things down on paper or on email form, but I'll email myself. If I'm trying to get thoughts on how I want to respond to a certain individual, and let's say I'm going to email that person because they're 3,000 miles away and this was a contentious Zoom meeting or something like that. What you don't want to do is have an email started to that person because you have the accidental send before you meant to,
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah.
um, and I do this not just for conflict resolution or trying to work through a particular problem. It could be just articulating a particular position or strategy point or ideation session, because I feel like, because when you say 24 hours, I mean, I love it because there's always something else or a change of thought that happens in the moment. Like if you're like developers, right? You're stuck. You can't get through this certain thing, so you're going to go out and let off some steam, and then it refreshes you and gets you thinking a little bit differently after that.
Yeah, I don't care who you are, man. At the end of the day, your brain is tired. You will think clear in the morning. That thing that's hot, you'll see it in a different light. And if it's right, it's right. Then you address it.
And are you going to be then perceived as the person who digs their heels in, stubborn as a mule, dog with a bone? I mean, there's all kinds of phrases that go against it. Or are you someone that is going to relinquish a point, be able to take on another point of view? Or, a mentor of mine said, look, you might be right, but right doesn't always win. And sometimes it's not your decision to make. How you handle that kind of information or decision, that's a character moment also. And how people observe how you take that's another moment.
Yeah, it's you got to pick the mounds you're going to die on. Am I trying to make a point, or am I trying to make a difference? That usually kind of can get things in perspective, because it's all perspective. And talking out loud is great. I mean, and we've talked about this before. Sometimes ideas in your head or issues in your head are bigger in your head than when you talk about it. It's like, now I hear that coming out of my mouth. That's not a freaking big deal. It's a small deal. It's not even an issue. Let's move on, but if it swirls around like a gnat, it gets bigger, and so purging is healthy.
I like when you say you got to run into the storm, because I do think the more it festers, and you're great at this, Craig, reinforcing this point. You got to get it out of your head, because sometimes, that can get toxic. And so if there is a problem, I agree. Running into the storm is super. It's healthy. It can be engaging, and there's all those other things you got to be mindful of. I mean, are you coming in hot? Is this gonna, how well is that going to be received? But in general, you want to tackle a problem head on as soon as possible, because the longer it goes, the worse that this becomes.
Because it takes a lot more energy to drive around a storm or try to navigate around it. So just run through that mug, drive into it, and usually do that first thing in the morning, because you want to do your hardest things first, because otherwise it'll fester and just build all day.
Yeah, and your brain is really fresh in the morning. Like you said, you get tired.
Yeah, it's truth, man.
Yeah. This is a business topic, right? This is not just an IT topic. But if I put my IT hat on, there's 3 goals in my mind that I try to instill with the group. I mean, you want to run a highly respected department in the organization. There's a lot that goes into that comment. Earning the confidence of the C-suite, your key stakeholders in the organization, and because that's not only do you want to be a good, provide excellent customer service for what their needs are and support their vision and their strategic initiatives, but you're helping to cement in that you're a partner to a strategic asset. I'm chuckling because this one gets me hot.
Yeah.
If we're just a support arm and not a strategic asset, right? And you want to manage a personable and trustworthy team. And we talked about some of the elements. And like I said, if you can't take 30 seconds to pick up the phone to follow up on someone who had a support problem, shame on you. But I'm also big on knowing names, being visible around the office, not just a voice on the phone. And so I always try to have these nuggets of understanding how John's son did in the state championship. Just pick your example. So I building up those small relationships, knowing who your squeaky wheels are, and those that are known for those tough personalities. Because I do put the white gloves on, because that is back to how you're communicated about after the fact. If you can strike up good rapport and a track record with the squeaky wheels and the tough personalities, imagine how that can spread in a positive way. That's just great for you and your team.
Yeah. And they need to hear that feedback too, to say, hey, let's set some goals around this, the squeaky wheel positive. We want this to be a positive, respectful organization, right? IT now has such an impact on culture, right? I mean, especially if you listen to the C-suite, what they're trying to communicate, we are across all departments, right? So reinforcing it with all of our communications, any communications, any tech change that is supporting the business and what the business needs. We're a big cheerleader, we're a big support arm, but we're a business strategy. We are an asset, right? And simple things like, hey, the president, CEO wants to send a message out to everybody. Well, maybe we help them out with a Teams video instead of an email, because we know people like to watch video versus get emails, and educate them on some of the tools that are available to better support the culture, to better support the direction of what they're trying to do from a business strategy standpoint. So we are starting to cross over a lot into the business strategy realm.
I'm helping to recruit for a senior level developer position, and just last week had a fantastic candidate, checked all the technical boxes and the variety of languages that were used. But once around the table, because we fly this individual in, man, it crumbled. I'm big on that culture fit, especially on a lean team. That's what gives longevity and strength and energy.
Yep.
When we know we're all going to mesh together.
Yeah, well, it's self-awareness and trust, right? I mean, when you're being truthful about yourself and knowing the team, that's how the trust develops.
And one other little tidbit on the support side: if there's a process you have in place, like a ticketing system, you put in a ticket. If there's a problem, put in a ticket first. Don't grab someone on. I'm not real rigid when it comes to that. Yes, we want employees to follow a process, but if there's a problem in the moment, that individual's day is disrupted. And if he or she happens to see you walking by and embrace it. You don't go in the policy mode. Well, did you put in a ticket? Put in the ticket for that person, but address the moment. You want to fix the problem. We'll worry about process later.
It's I love that what you just said of put the ticket in for them, create the systems that support the systems you want, because having the team do an exercise of, hey, the marketing system computer's down. Why don't you go put yourself in their position? Let's talk through it. They have a job to do. They have deadlines from their boss. Their computer just messed up. Does it an inconvenience to you? But put yourself in their position. They're down. You need, their stress levels high. They got pressure. Doing some of those humble retrospectives might be good for teams just to manage the perception, right? I mean, because sometimes we get caught in our IT world of, man, another ticket, because people come to us for problems, right? With problems.
Yeah, that's right.
But if
the joke is they never call you never get a phone call that says, hey, just letting you know everything's working right.
Yeah, we'll have to ask.
Kicking ass, thanks.
We'll have to ask that monthly. Hey, we need something positive. Give us something positive, right? But but for an IT team, just that humbleness is just the reminders, and you got to do it different ways. But just say, hey, let's put ourselves in their position.
And that's back to getting to know the individuals, because you can drown in ticket volume. So you have 100 tickets, and you're always going to have 100 tickets. How do you prioritize that work? Well, getting to know the folks on the floor and not treating them as transactions, that's going to help with your prioritization. Because if you're always treading water or putting out fires, you'll know which flames to tackle first, because you know the organization. You know that this person who's submitting a ticket, you probably can buy a little bit of time with a quick phone call. Hey, I know this, but I'm going to get, oh, no problem. When you get to it, right? There's so much that goes into the service side of this. But if everything is just a transaction for you, this is going to be a tough road, and you're not going to get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
The whole perception concept that we're talking about, you know, we're starting to do things now of proactive business process optimization meetings, right? Where IT typically is reactive. But how about you and a team member go sit in the marketing department, have a conversation? Hey, show us what you do. Is there anything that we can help out to do better? We have a lot of tools in our tool bag now. Can we tell me what takes you the most time? We might be able to do a quick Power Automate script, something. Just tell me about your day. And I'll tell you what, you talk about perception and start trust and communication. Those type of meetings, which I think is in my opinion, level one training is, teaching them tools. Level two is really business process optimization. And that's where we go from service level to consultant to our departments and say, hey, how can we help you with all these tools we have?
Now you have skin in the game, right? You're not coming to someone with a solution. You want to understand their problem. You want to understand their process. And so to live a day in their life, if you're implementing a CRM system, how about I'm going to go on the road with one of the reps, and not just the top rep, someone who is new to the company, has a different set of eyes. So you're getting a diverse, array of perspective, and truly understanding their day in the life before you come with this prescriptive solution.
Yeah, well, it's the salesperson, then it's the person back at the office doing sales support that's probably entering them all, validating them all. Is there stuff that we can learn in both of these and start optimizing the organization? Because I really think that's where IT is headed, especially with AI. We should be looking at processes and looking how we can automate and make their lives better. I mean, those are the companies that are going to start accelerating.
My BSA, we were doing some projects for the operations team, and she ended up coming in for 2 weeks, working second shift to be on the floor with these individuals. And the credibility that came out of that move from a team that was, I'll say, skeptical of what the IT department was doing for them in the past. Wow, what an impact that made.
You're relatable, and you understand. You're
Well said.
seeking to understand. Like,
Yeah, seeking to
all right, and
understand.
that's what is it?
Yeah.
Covey, seek to understand, then be understood, right? So, but seek to understand is usually one of those things that you should have on the wall. Seek to understand, because we forget that sentence too much.
And everything we talked about comes flooding back in, right? The active listening, seek to understand, being relatable. I mean, it all comes home.
And these are all good perception tips. I mean, and it's not fake perception, it's reality, right? I mean, we just got to do the real stuff to have real relationships.
It's not fake perception. So, and we talked about this in a prior episode, if I forget John Bell's name and have to ask the person next to me, hey, who's that again? That's not me being fake. That was just me, out of the hundreds of names in my head, I couldn't recall it. Oh, that's right, John. And you're looking for that little help trigger mode. And I also mentioned about how taking notes. So if I have to reference notes about a particular department or individuals in there, it doesn't mean I'm fake caring. That means I just need a little bit of a jog. Like you said it before, Craig. It's like, if someone, was distraught because, their pet had to go in for surgery, if I forgot that it was a beagle and thought it was a chihuahua, that doesn't mean I don't give a shit. That just means, man, I wasn't thinking. I need that little bit of jog. I still care. Trust me.
A tech tip, I was just coaching one of my clients, IT directors, yesterday. I said, keep a little notebook by, always carry either a 3x5 or a 5x8. I always do, because we have to jot. But when you're listening, you're going to think of, oh man, I got to remember to tell them about this. I got to remember to tell them about this. And then you stop listening. You stop listening. So jot it. Just jot real quick and go right back to listening. And then at the end, pause and like, oh, here's a couple points I wanted to chat with you about. But just a quick.
Our colleague Tom asked me this question. I want to get your thoughts. Is it better perception if you're handwriting on a small notepad or notes, or typing on the laptop? What's the perception on the other side of the fence there?
Notepad, 100%. Whenever you have a barrier, laptop barrier, I'm not listening, I'm doing something. I even tried iPad. I did try to go total electronic, and inevitably something jerks up, right? And then you're messing around. It looks like you're doinking around doodling versus listening, right? So it's all. And so what I do is I just went back to notebook and I take pictures with my phone in OneNote. So I have it all with me. It's just it's just analog, in meetings, in high level. Now there's time and place when we're doing some exercises. We need print screens. We need all that stuff. There's architectural meetings, but if it's meetings, I'm no notebook guy all the way.
Are you going to be perceived as the geek in the room or the business partner you're strategizing with?
For sure.
Thanks for joining in on another great topic, managing perceptions. Think about that the next time you're in the office. All it takes is one bad moment to unwind months, if not years, of great work. So be mindful of those around you, what you say, when you say it, where you say it. And there's a know your audience element to that too, right? How people look at you, it's not just formed by your personal interactions, but from the gossip of others. So try and control that narrative the best you can. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Yeah. One of the guys that I work with is, we call him our bullshit meter,
Okay.
And what do you think? He'll just be like, nah.
One of my clients, IT directors, yesterday, and I was talking to him about active listening, weird enough, Active Directory, really active listening, right? So I said, keep a little notebook.
And I even tried the iPad thing too. And you're right. Something goes wrong. It's like, all right, what the hell happened? So now you're messing around with CFOs and CEOs that I've worked for. Managing perceptions is important. And I'm rambling now.
Yeah! Kick it!